Good morning. Last time we talked about the relationship between aggregate demand or aggregate expenditure and income. And as we said that aggregate demand determines real GDP. And from this equation, y equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, we said that the relationship between aggregate demand and aggregate expenditure is a two-way relation, as consumption is affected by income and will affect income, and inputs is affected by income and will affect the income, but with opposite sign or the inverse one. So this means that if income increases, consumption expenditure will increase, and this will affect income once again or real GDP of the country. And the same with respect to M. As income increases, M is going to increase, but M has a negative sign, which means that this will affect Y negatively. So there is a two-way link between aggregate expenditure and real GDP. Then we talked about consumption and the consumption function. And as we said, consumption is a part of disposable income or a function of disposable income. It's affected by disposable income. Disposable income is the difference between total income received by household minus taxes. So this is known as disposable income. So we can write consumption function as C equals A plus small c yd, where A is the intercept, which is the value of C when yd equals 0, and C is the marginal propensity to consume, or MPC, which is a change in consumption due to change in disposable income by 1 unit. And then we illustrate this graphical as consumption function. This is disposable income, and here's consumption. As we said that we are not going to start from the origin point due to autonomous consumption. This is known as autonomous consumption. Autonomous means doesn't depend on income. So this is an amount of or number of units consumed that doesn't depend on income. So this is point A, for example, and then this is consumption function. This is the autonomous consumption. The slope is the marginal propensity to consume. If you are going to distribute your income or use all your income in consumption, then we are going to have something known as income line, which is 45-degree line. This is known as income line. This line shows, if you are going to compare between this line and the consumption, you can find whether the individual is, or the country is going to save or use from their own savings, or just savings equal, consumption equal income, so that it's a break-even point. So in this area, we can realize that consumption is greater than income, so there is this saving. You are going to withdraw money from your previous savings or borrow money from other people. At this point, consumption equals disposable income, and this is known as the break-even point. What you are going to get, you are going to spend on consumption. There is no extra money. In this area, we can realize that income is greater than consumption, so we can save money. Based on the circular flow model, we said that households are going to distribute their income between consumption, savings, and taxes. Y equals C plus S plus T. If you would like to find the relationship between consumption, savings, and disposable income, so we are going to subtract T from both sides. It's Y minus T equals C plus S. It's YD equals C plus S. This means that households are going to distribute their disposable income after payment of tax between consumption and savings. So we can find saving function just like consumption function. Savings equals negative A plus small s YD. Negative A is the value of S when disposable income is 0, as we said in consumption function. If consumption is greater than income, you are going to save or borrow money. So your saving will be negative. Okay? This value of S when YD equals 0. Small s stands for marginal propensity to save, which is a change in savings due to change in disposable income by 1 unit. To illustrate this graphical, this is consumption function and this is for saving function. YD, C and S, and this is consumption, 45-degree line, which is income line. In the first part A, consumption is greater than income, so savings will be negative, which is negative A, and this is A. Okay. At this point, consumption is equal to income, so savings will be 0, and this is income. So this is saving line. After this point, income will be greater than consumption, so there is positive savings. So this is the saving line. This is negative savings, positive savings, which means this saving. And this is Y equals CD, or break-even point, and here S equals 0. From this, we can conclude that marginal propensity to consume plus marginal propensity to save must be 1. Their summation must be 1. As total income will be distributed between consumption by its percentage and savings by its percentage. Say for example, C equals 100 minus 0.7 YD, sorry, plus 0.7 YD. This means that 70% of your disposable income will be spent on consumption. Your disposable income is 100%, 70 for consumption. So 30% will be saved or saving. Okay, so the total is 100%, which is 1. If you are going to write it in another form, it's 1. So the summation of consumption and savings will be 1. Sorry, a summation of marginal propensity to consume and the marginal propensity to save will be 1. If you would like to find saving function, it will be S equals negative A, which is negative 100, plus 0.7, it's 1 minus 0.7, it's 0.3 YD. So this is saving function. From the beginning, we said that y equals c plus I plus g plus x minus m, and we said that c will affect y and will be affected by y, and m will affect y and will be affected by y. So just like consumption, we would like to find inputs function. Inputs function m is a function of income, not disposable income. You are going to spend based on real GDP, not disposable income. Okay, so we can write it as m naught plus small m y, where m naught is the autonomous or is the value of m when y equals 0. Small m is marginal propensity to import. Or can be written as MBI, which is the change due to change in income by 1 unit. So if we write it as M equals 100 plus 0.25 Y, this means that for each you are going to spend 0.25 on inputs. Okay, now we would like to draw the aggregate demand function, the aggregate expenditure function with all its components. This is real GDP, and this is aggregate planned expenditure. What's meant by planned? And what's the difference between planned and unplanned? Okay, let's start with the graph, and then we are going to explain the difference between planned and unplanned expenditure. Okay, this will be affected by y, and this will be affected by y, while I is constant, g is constant, x is constant, or exogenous. This is exogenous, which means doesn't depend on income. I doesn't depend on income. G doesn't depend on income, and so on. So I is a fixed value with respect to income. It's going to be fixed value. Say, for example, 10. So whatever the level of real GDP, investment will be 10. This is I. And now we are going to add G to I. So the new line will be I plus G. This is I plus G. It's I in addition to G. So this is the value of G. Now we are going to add X. So the new line will be I plus G plus X. This is the value of X. Then we are going to add C. If there is autonomous consumption or exogenous part, which is A, so we are not going to start from this point, but a higher point. Okay? But C with respect to Y, there is a positive relationship. So the line will not be parallel to the x-axis, but it's gonna increase positively. Something like that. This is I plus G plus X plus C. And this part is A. Okay. Then we are going to subtract M. M will be subtracted from aggregate expenditure. So this is, as we are going to subtract, so the line will be moved downward. Okay. This is aggregate expenditure equation, or I plus G plus X minus M plus C. The blue line is aggregate expenditure. This is M. Okay. From this we can divide expenditures to autonomous expenditure and induced expenditure. Autonomous expenditure, as we said, does not depend on income. Autonomous expenditure includes A in consumption function, I, G, X, M node in import function. While induced expenditure varies with real GDP. It includes small c multiplied by yd and small m multiplied by y. This is induced consumption and this is induced imports. This is autonomous consumption. Investment is autonomous, G is autonomous, X is autonomous, and this is autonomous imports. Okay, what is the difference between actual expenditure, planned expenditure? Actual is the real GDP. While planned is equivalent to actual expenditure plus or minus a change in inventory. And this is unplanned expenditure. What is the equilibrium expenditure level? This is the point at which aggregate planned expenditure is equivalent to real GDP. Graphical. Just like consumption and savings, we are going to draw two different figures. The first one is related to aggregate expenditure, and the second one is related to unplanned inventories. This is real GDP, and this is aggregate planned expenditure. Aggregate planned expenditure is this line, okay? So we can draw it like a positive slope line, not start from the origin. It's going to start from the an autonomous part, يعني, or an intercept. So this is A. And just like consumption, there is a 45-degree line, which is an income line. and this is 45 degree. With respect to the lower panel, real GDP on the x-axis, and on the y-axis it's unplanned inventory. Okay, with respect to the first part, part A, aggregate planned expenditure is greater than income. So unplanned inventory will be negative. At this point, income is equivalent to aggregate planned expenditure, so this is a break-even point. At this point, there is no inventory. Inventory will be 0. After this point, income is greater than aggregate expenditure, so there is a positive unplanned inventory. سوري معلش الرسمة بايظة خالص مني. Okay, this is unplanned inventory. So the equilibrium expenditure is at this point. This is equilibrium point, as aggregate expenditure is equivalent, or aggregate planned expenditure is equivalent to income. Okay, that's enough for today. Just recap in our program. احنا المرة اللي فاتت يا جماعة بدأنا بإن احنا نقول إن في two-way relationship between consumption between aggregate expenditure real GDP. قلنا ده بيحصل ازاي من حاجتين. consumption، قلنا ان consumption بتبقى affected by income وبتأفكت الانكم، تمام. ونفس الكلام بالنسبة للإمبورت، قلنا ان هي برضو بتتأثر بالانكم وبتتأثر فيها. فهم دول التو فاكتورز اللي بيكونوا بيأثروا على الواي وبيتأثروا بالواي. طب بالنسبة للباقي، الباقي ده بقول عليه exogenous. exogenous يعني ايه؟ يعني مش بيتأثر، مش بيعتمد على الواي اصلا. طيب بعد كده عملنا consumption function. قلنا ان consumption دي function of disposable income، فكان لازم نوضح يعني ايه disposable income. disposable income ده هو الانكم اللي باقي معايا بعد ما دفعت التاكسز. فبنقول ان C equals A plus C plus YD. ال A دي هو الاوتونوموس، يعني انا كده كده لو ما قبضتش فلوس خالص لازم هاكل، يبقى ده الاوتونوموس بتاعي، ده اللي انا هاكله، اللي انا هشتريه، اللي انا هلبسه كده يعني. طيب السي الصغننه دي بنسميها marginal propensity to consume، ودي معناها ان انا لو زودت الانكم بتاعي بجنيه السي هتتغير بقد ايه. وعملنا الكلام ده جرافيكال. بعد كده قلنا نفس الكلام ممكن نعمله للسيفنج، بما ان انا الانكم بتاعي بعمله بدفع الاول الضرايب، فكده بقى عندي disposable income. الباقي بعمل فيه ايه؟ يا اما بعمل له consumption يا اما بشيل الباقي في البنك، بعمل سيفنج للباقي ده. فطلعنا من الكلام ده برضو الايكويشن بتاعه السيفنج ورسمناهم جرافيكال. طيب زي ما كان فيه consumption function في import function. طيب بس بالنسبه لي الامبورتس ما بتكونش function في الديسبوزابل انكم، لا هي بتكون function في الانكم نفسه، هي function mainly في الريال جي دي بي، تمام. فاحنا بنقول ان الام equals m node plus my. الام نود دي معناها اللي هو الاوتونوموس، اللي هو الجزء اللي انا كده كده هعمل له امبورت حتى لو الانكم بتاعي بزيرو. رو ماتيريال مثلا محتاجها في البرودكشن، فكده كده هنستوردها من بره، اي حاجه بقى. الام دي المارجنال بروبنسيتي تو امبورت، ودي معناها كل ما الانكم بتاعي زاد انا هزود الامبورتس بتاعتي بقد ايه. طيب بعد كده طلعنا من الكلام ده رسمه سميناها aggregate planned expenditure. بدأنا ازاي؟ بدأنا بالاي. الاي ده قلنا autonomous، يعني fixed value whatever level of real GDP، ايا كان الريال جي دي بي بكام، بزيرو، بمليون، ب100 مليون، هي الفاليو بتاعت الانفستمنت ثابت. عشان كده سماه اول لاين بارالل للاكس اكس. طيب الجي هي كمان زيه ثابت، فاحنا عملنا الاي بلس الجي، رسمنا لاين تاني بارالل للاولاني اعلى منه شويه بيمثل لي الاي بلس الجي، هو الاول بلس حطينا عليه الجي، وبعدين عملنا نفس الكلام للاكس، فبقى عندي لاين اي بلس جي بلس اكس. طيب نيجي عاوزين نحط السي. السي فيها جزئين، فيها الاي اللي هي autonomous، وفيها الجزء اللي هو الانديوست. فبدأنا بالاوتونوموس عشان كده طلعت فوق شويه اللي هو الجزء ده، وبعدين عملنا الانديوست اللي هو positively sloped. جينا للام. الام عملناها، الام هي هتبقى ماينس، فاحنا هنعمل لها هننقصها من اللي فوق، فعشان كده نزلنا باللاين اللي تحت، فبقى عندي لاين جديد هو ده الاجريجيت اكسبندتشر، اجريجيت بلاند اكسبندتشر. طيب بعد كده قلنا ان احنا الاجريجيت اكسبندتشر ده ممكن نقسمه لحاجتين، اوتونوموس وانديوست. الاوتونوموس اللي هو ما بيعتمدش على الانكم زي الاي والاي والجي والاكس والام نوت، وعندنا الجزء التاني اللي هو الانديوست اللي هو بيعتمد على الانكم بتاعي، اللي هو جزئين بس، السمول سي اللي هو المارجنال propensity to consume multiplied by الواي دي، والجزء التاني اللي هو السمول ام which is marginal propensity to import multiplied by y. بعد كده حبينا نفرق ما بين actual expenditure و planned expenditure. الاكتوال هو ده الريال جي دي بي. طب البلاند هو الاكتوال بس بنحط عليه التشينج ان انفنتوري. يعني انا دلوقتي كان عندي ستوك زياده عن الاكسبندتشرز بتاعت الناس، عن الاكتوال اكسبندتشر، فزودت الانفنتوري بتاعتي. تمام. لو اول عكس ان انا الناس اتصرفت اكتر من اللي انا عامله حسابي عليه، فسحبت من الانفنتوري القديم. بعد كده قلنا ازاي نحدد الايكوليبريم اكسبندتشر. قلنا الايكوليبريم ده بيبقى البوينت اللي عندها الاجريجيت بلاند اكسبندتشر هي الريال جي دي بي، يعني بمعنى اخر الاكتوال هو البلاند. طيب جرافيكال عملنا تو بانلز، البانل اللي فوق فيها الريال جي دي بي والاجريجيت بلاند اكسبندتشر، والبانل اللي تحت الريال جي دي بي والان بلاند انفنتوري. رسمنا الاجريجيت اكسبندتشر لاين اللي احنا كنا عملنا له درايفيشن في الرسمه اللي فاتت، تمام، ورسمنا ال 45 ديجري لاين اللي هو الانكم لاين اللي بيمثل الريال جي دي بي بتاعي. وقلنا ان في اول بارت اللي هو بارت A ده هنلاقي ان الاجريجيت اكسبندتشر اعلى من الانكم بتاعي، يعني الناس بتصرف كتير، ففي الحاله دي او اعلى من الريال جي دي بي بتاعي، ففي الحاله دي هنعمل ايه؟ هنعمل withdraw من الانفنتوري، فهيبقى فيه نيجاتيف انفنتوري. طيب البوينت اوف ايكوليبريم اللي عندها الانكم اللي هو الاكتوال expenditure equivalent to aggregate expenditure، يبقى البوينت دي هي البوينت اوف ايكوليبريم اللي عندها مفيش انفنتوري، الانفنتوري بتاعي بزيرو، لا هو فيه بوزيتيف ولا هو فيه نيجاتيف. طيب بعد البوينت دي بقى الريال جي دي بي اعلى من الاجريجيت اكسبندتشر اللي الناس بتصرفه اقل من البرودكشن اللي حصل، فيبقى احنا كده هيبقى عندنا في انفنتوري بالبوزيتيف. كده كفايه الاسبوع ده، شكرا، اشوفكم الاسبوع الجاي ان شاء الله.